In this episode, we bring back Shawn Hershey, a math interventionist teacher and department chair from Pennsylvania. Shawn joined us back in episode 223 as we discussed how to strengthen his math team. And this time around, Shawn's seeking advice on how to create alignment across his school's K-12 grade bands. He also, he's seen individual pockets of success in his school, but knows that, if his teachers are working towards common objectives, that alignment will strengthen their team and the students they work with.
This is another Math Mentoring Moment episode where we chat with a teacher just like you from our Math Moment Maker community who's working through some problems of practice, and together we brainstorm some ways to overcome them.
Let's go!
Welcome to the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. I'm Kyle Pierce.
And I'm John Orr. We are from MakeMathMoments.com.
This is the only podcast that coaches you through a 6-step plan to grow your mathematics program, whether at the classroom level or at the district level.
And we do that by helping you cultivate and foster your mathematics program like a strong, healthy, and balanced tree. So if you master the 6 parts of an effective math program, the impact will grow and reach far and wide.
Every week, you'll get the insight you need to stop feeling overwhelmed, gain back your confidence, and get back to enjoying the planning and facilitating of your math program for the students or educators you serve.
Hey, Shawn, welcome back to the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. We're glad to have you back. And actually, I think Kyle and I were just looking at the dates. We chatted with you not long ago. So a lot of times we wait a year, we wait a year and a half, and we kind of check in with the folks that we chatted with to see where they are in their journey. I think we just chatted with you like less than 6 months ago. So we're excited to kind of dig into what's changed along the way, where your journey is. But do us a favor before we dive deep in there. Fill the listeners in. I know I'll tell them to go back and listen to episode 223. That's the episode that you were last on to kind of get a sense of your journey. But fill them in. Where you're coming from, what's your role, and then let's dive into like what's happened since the last time we chatted.
I'm a middle school math interventionist in Pennsylvania, and my role is I basically help. In a nutshell, I try to keep as many kids as possible from entering direct instruction or special education. I'm kind of the front line, and it's kind of the way we put in structures in place to assist kids that need a little bit more help with math, and then see if we can get them going and keep them in the regular ed.
I love it.
In a nutshell, because that's our goal.
Awesome. Now, for those who are listening and remember episode 223, I would say that your role, you've definitely taken on a role that has a leadership aspect to it. You're thinking about the teachers, and you're kind of like a conduit from my interpretation anyway. And it sounds like, you've got a good relationship with your colleagues, and, you're constantly striving to try to, make things better for kids, right? And obviously easier for teachers is always important because we need to make sure it's as easy and as smooth and seamless as possible, so that it's easier for us to do the right thing for students. So give us a little bit of an update. How have things been going? Last we spoke, we had we chatted about the 6 parts of an effective math program, and we even talked a little bit about some math talks or mini lessons at the start. Tell us, how are things going lately?
So I guess basically, from the last time we talked, we were just trying to understand the tree. I think, so when you asked me to come on the show, I started, it took 2 days. I was trying to think where we started and where we're going. And remember, this started back in 2018, if you guys remember. I feel kind of lucky that I was with you guys from the ground, because I did your first class with you, and then you guys developed the website, if you remember, but it was really bare bones.
Yes,
and then
it was.
You guys got to
we do remember when it was bare bones. Yes.
Someone that comes in now and discovers you guys, it's like this thing is really robust. But you guys, I guess I kind of everything kind of got slowly released to me over the years. So what I was saying to you is, the reason why I say that is, while we knew we wanted context, we started there and we've never stopped that. Okay. We never stopped trying to take what we have. We weren't in the spiraling, but we're like literally taking our textbooks and changing them with the deep problems. And like what you helped me understand is, number one, you're working on several parts of the tree when you're doing that. You're doing professional development because you're meeting together to talk about the problem. You're doing conceptual understanding because you need that to build it. And then you're also, the leaves are kind of dying from the resource and rebuilding another one. So I think for us, that's something where we always started. But what we were doing is we were focusing so much on our building. So this is going back to your question now. So like, I feel like we built up to there, but what we weren't doing is the leadership, the trunk. You guys kind of said, you need to start expanding that a little more. Like we kind of know where we're going in the middle school, but like, where are we going as a district? And now we have some places. It's not that we haven't done that. It's just, I don't know how intentional it was, because the elementary teachers would contact us, and the elementary chair, the elementary points of contact down there, we would talk. But now I'm thinking like we need to get together with all three of us and kind of see where we're going, and then get that direction, that vision going. Because I said, it was funny, I was talking to the guy who's going to go for me. I said, I only have 5 years left. Here's where I'm going. I know where I want to end, which is number talks. I said, but where are you going to take it after that? So we got to start keeping this shit, because like you said, it just never ends. That's why I agree. It's just one of those pieces. Like that's where my next steps are. And also number talks. So
got it.
In order to do number talks, you would have to develop your own conceptual understanding. So I'm trying to look at, okay, what are the number talks? What do they look like in our 40-minute period? And how do we do that as a teacher? And now, so this summer, every grade level invited me in. So we actually met over the summer, and each grade level was kind of unique, where we were looking at our 6th grade math team this year just went to a double period. So now we don't have just 40 minutes in 6th grade. We have 90 minutes. And that was interesting, looking at that rotational model and building some pieces in there. But we didn't go there with number talks, because I don't think we're just looking at the curriculum for right now and how does that look in 90 minutes. Once we figure that out, then we move forward. In 7th grade, they now have all their textbook on Keynote. That's interesting to me, because I learned that from you guys. That's how you adapt the problem and keep your textbook flexible as you're moving through. Because we just did that yesterday, which I can talk about an example with that from just yesterday, our 5th day of school. But they're working on building those problems. So they're at a little bit different spot. And then my 8th grade teachers already have all that done, but they're now doing building thinking classrooms. So there this summer, and we looked at the problems we're going to do with that, and what are the rich tasks, and how do we adapt those? And we looked at every problem that we're going to do through the year for that. So every grade level is a little bit different and at a different spot, which is, I think, a cool part. So anyway,
it's where we want. That's a good. It's a good recap of where you are now, and it sounds like you've got a great focus. You got a great understanding of obviously your classroom and your district level tree and the pieces that need to come into place. You talked about the trunk. We talked about the leaves. You've indirectly talked about branches, some of the moves, but also some of the kind of those puzzle pieces that are in the right spot. And I heard you mention a few different things of like where you want to go. So Shawn, like, where do you want to focus some of our time here, and like where can we help you the most? So like, what really matters to you right now?
I would say K-12 alignment would be my biggest focus, and how you guys like to do that. So I sent the survey to, I think with the structures I have in place, the biggest alignment I have would be, I think, K-12, because we're not going to grow as a middle school until our elementary grows. Now they just adopted iReady, and I think they are moving, like the elementary person is phenomenal, and our teachers down there are phenomenal. So I think the structures are in place. It's just, where's the vision going to go? Like, so we got this program, but what does that program mean for the middle school? What does that program mean for that? In my mind, that's where I'm trying to wrap things. And I don't know how you guys go about doing that, but I think getting the people in the room that work with the teachers, I think, is just the next, and I already talked to Cheryl about it, and it was like, she's like, yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And, because really, I think one of the best ways first of all, to do that is exactly as you're describing, getting everyone together. It sounds like there is already some relationships there, right? At least it seems like that. So that's great. If there aren't relationships, this is more for other people listening. If there are not relationships yet, thinking about ways that you can get together on a more regular basis to build those relationships, to build that relational trust is going to be really important. If there's already some trust there, then, you might be able to get right into really asking some questions because, if you think about it, John and I are kind of asking you some of the same questions you might want to ask the group. And that, for example, might be, like, why was iReady selected? Was there, is it just the best thing you could find? What's the goal? Like, what are we hoping for in elementary? And, I don't know about you, John, but I'm thinking right away, this sounds to me like a great opportunity to get the entire group to engage in the wish list activity that we've mentioned a few times before. And this is something that it's like a brainstorming activity, but it's also a trust builder, right? And it allows you to talk about some of the things that are important to us for our students, right? And there's some things that you'll probably say, Shawn, about, when we say the magic wand wish list, what we say is like, if you could wave the magic wand and you could make the perfect math class environment, the perfect math class experience, the perfect end result for our students. Like, 5 years from now, what are students going to say about math class when they were with you? Like, you can phrase it so many different ways, but to get the entire group talking with each other and sharing some of the things that matter, that can really help you with starting to shape. It starts really big, as you can imagine, right? You're going to have all of these ideas out there. But the one thing that will be really important, and I feel like, Shawn, you would actually be a really great fit for this role, but maybe there's another instructional coach, or maybe there's another leader in the team that might be, willing to co-facilitate this with you. But ultimately, someone has to take on the job of taking these wish list items and trying to help direct or trying to help shape some sort of themes there, right? And you're going to hear the same ideas popping out. Now, you've got the tree in the back of your mind, right? So you have all these ideas over here. Like when somebody says, I wish the students knew their math facts. I might be saying, you know what? I want to group that together in like a roots section because you know what? I think there's more to it, right? The roots is the content knowledge. Like it's like, so how do I do that? Some people might say, well, what about like that might be the branches as well, because the branches is how we go about it pedagogically, right? Is it just, flashcards and that's it? And, or drill and kill, as some people would call it, you just repeat. Or is there something else there, right, that we need to dig into? And what you can do is you can essentially, through this activity, you can get everybody bringing their ideas to the table. And we're not talking one idea. We're saying like anything and everything that you would want in your math class. Like we want to be greedy here, right? Like we want to be like, what is it that would make that perfect experience? And what you get is people sharing all these ideas. And then, oh, Shawn shared this. And then the next thing pops into my mind. And then I share that idea. And many of them are going to be very connected. Some of them are going to be a little bit further apart. But ultimately, at the end, if we as a team can kind of come together, this activity really helps people to see that, you know what? No matter what our opinions are, maybe me and this other colleague in grade 7 have had a disagreement about something and, mathematically, whether it's pedagogy or content or whatever it might be, what you'll find is that you actually have a lot more in common in terms of what you want in your math class than you have that is a difference of opinion, right? And what you can do is you start to take these ideas and we try to start organizing them in such a way that we can start figuring out, hey, like where is that area of focus, right? And our district level assessment that we do, as well as our classroom assessment, helps individual teachers sort of ask themselves some, difficult questions. This wish list, idea is a great group activity because it emerges so many ideas, some that you already had on your mind, but then probably some of the ones that you didn't have on your mind, right? So it's helpful to even the facilitator who's trying to do this, who's trying to make this work, right? So you are at the center here of this idea of alignment. So in your mind, you're going like, how do I align all these people if they all want different things? Well, we try to find anything and everything that we have in common. And then we start to say, hey, like, what does this look like and sound like? And then actually, are there some things that we can all agree on that we want to focus on as a group? That doesn't mean that, Shawn, maybe number talks doesn't hit the list for this year for the entire group. That doesn't mean Shawn can't work on them as well. But we want to make an agreement across our K through 12 group to try to get ourselves in a place where we go, there's these three things. We typically pick three, like three objectives that we want to focus on here for the next, we'll say, we don't want to put necessarily a timeline on it, but like, the next 1 to 3 years, we want to be focusing on these three things. And we want to make those our priority when it comes to mathematics as a team, as a group. Everyone can have their individual things that they want to also explore, but we want to commit to each other that, hey, by the end of this school year, we're going to see some gains in this, this, and this. And we start to craft, what does that look like? Like if we get there, if we reach those goals, what is that going to look like? What's the result going to be? And this activity can really just open the door to, exploring where everyone's mind is at. You might learn, why did they select that curriculum in elementary? Or you might learn that actually they aren't sure. And they just sort of were like, that just looked, like the best tool, right? So it really allows us to reduce or eliminate the assumptions we might be making about the choices that we make in our classrooms. And we just try to get a little bit more connected, a little bit more aligned, so that when I am thinking about those elementary teachers or when I'm thinking about those high school teachers, I can actually have a better sense of what it is that they're actually trying to achieve there, instead of just assuming that we're kind of all on the same page. Like we all want the kids to know the math, like that I think is a given, but it's like, what's our key objective, our goal that we're after here?
I just want to add two things to what you just said here, Kyle, because I think what that activity is one of the very first activities we do with our district partners when we sit down and start the planning process. And Shawn, I would recommend you doing that first yourself or with any small team, like maybe you've got maybe your superintendent, and you bring them on board and go, look, what do we want to focus on this year? And then that's like your subcommittees, like figuring out what you want, and you're doing your magic wand wish list. What does it look like in our classrooms 5 years from now? What do we want to see? And when you craft that list and you start to narrow down and go, hey, maybe we can pick three big things. The beauty part is when you do the activity like Kyle suggested with the bigger group, K to 12, now you've got a target of like, where do you want to steer the conversation, right? Because if you're trying to go like, we know these three things are really important for our school system this year, because you've done all the research, right? You've done all the learning, and not every classroom teacher or not every person in charge of a site might have that same learning. So you might have a little bit of a leg up to go like, I know that because of research, this is really important for us, but they might not know that. So you get to steer that conversation towards the three things you're looking at. So think about our classrooms. Like when we are facilitating math talks in our classrooms, or we're teaching through problem-based lessons, yes, we're giving the students up front the access, the ability to start solving problems on their own, or this particular problem on our own, but we know what the learning goal is of that lesson, and we're crafting that conversation to get students to land on the learning goal or bring out the need for this skill in that lesson. That's exactly what we're doing when we're doing our planning processes. So we're crafting this discussion and go, okay, oh, you said you want, better math facts. And like Kyle says, like, well, maybe we could put that in the roots area. Like that was Kyle's example. And it's because you're like, oh yeah, that's perfect, because I'm going to use that to talk about how we can build conceptual understanding with our students. Right. So it's kind of like you get to craft where you want it to go. And here's the second piece, why this is such a great activity, is because now it looks like your team built the plan, and they have ownership in all the things that they want to work towards. And it's really all addressing little pebbles that all these teachers had along the way in their shoes anyway, because they're sharing those out. And you're like, you know what, you're finding kids aren't doing homework. All right, let's put that over here and let's try to address, that might fit all the way across. Well, what could help us slot that in? Hey, that thing right here, that's something we can all work towards. And it was because of you guys wanted a fix there. It wasn't because Shawn came in and said you should do this. Right, which is a big worry of us.
Kind of like Shawn wanted to, but they don't know that happened, right?
So it's kind of like this is I have a solution over here that could work to fix this pebble, but everything is about addressing those pebbles that they're sharing. And now you look like you're not the one coming in and saying we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. They're coming up with it, and you're kind of sliding in, going like, let me just facilitate this discussion. But all along, you and that small team had crafted, carefully crafted this discussion the whole time.
How's that make you feel? Where's your head at there?
Can I recap?
Yeah,
yeah. We said a lot. We said a lot.
You guys,
I can tell we get kind of passionate about this work. So I'm so excited for you and your team.
This is the work that we've been doing for the last couple of years. So we wanted to share.
I think it's amazing. So to recap, I think with the structures, at least in my district, I think getting with the elementary, myself, and the high school person, we come together and we kind of throw a wish list around, just kind of, because I think that's good because our elementary person understands elementary, like the schedule and everything like that, what that looks like. Our high school person understands that. So I think when we come together, but that magic wand wish list, which I know I've done, like I said, that's why I said we got to start going bigger. But when you do the magic wand, which you said be greedy, so there's going to be a ton of things. You then said pick just 3 objectives, which I guess you're saying the 3 objectives, then we take the wish list items and try to throw them into 3 objectives, or are we choosing 3 objectives from the wish list?
Great question. So usually the wish list is going to start very it's like a brainstorming activity. It's messy. It's, the wording isn't always great. It's just like getting your ideas out there, right? And now we're starting, doing it on sticky notes can be helpful, or doing it on whiteboards. This is another trust builder as well. Like if you get depending on how big the group is, about how many educators would that be, do you think?
It would only be 3 of us.
Oh my gosh. So this would be great. You could just do it right around a table, and, some sticky notes are nice. And the reason sticky notes are nice is because you can kind of move them around and maybe group them together a little bit, right? Like create little clusters together. But then as you start to look at this, the goal here is that you get all these ideas out, but then you start to think about if these 5 stickies are together, right? And there's 5 different ideas there. It's like your objective is probably going to be kind of at a slightly higher level than that sort of encompasses those 5, right? So some people, you might be around let's say there was around, a productive disposition. I'm using one of the 5 proficiencies. So I know that word might not come out that way, but it might be described like this idea of kids, seeing purpose in mathematics. They want, students to feel positively about mathematics. They want to see themselves as doers of mathematics. They want to persevere. They want to, stick-to-itiveness and all of those things. You group those together and you go, wow, okay, those are a lot of really key things, really important things. I feel like this has to do with mindset, that the soil, the leaves, the water of the tree. And you're like, okay, so what's our objective? And now you can start crafting, describing what that is. What is it that we're going to try to achieve? And by doing that objective, you're going to actually be kind of helping those 5 sticky notes, if that makes sense, right? Now, there is no perfect process here. And really, it is pretty organic as it comes along. And it's always helpful when there's, a facilitator there. John and I typically are working with our district partners to engage in this work. And we we take on that role for them so that we can kind of help them to craft some ideas, because, it's kind of scary work, right? If you've never done it before, you're like, did I pick the right objective? Did I pick the wrong objective? The reality is that this work oftentimes will continue to shape, and we're going to continue refining it. So it's not about getting it, say, right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. It's about making progress towards that clarity, right? So it's just like anything. It's almost like you're picturing it in the distance, and you can see what that, in the distance, but it's still pretty hazy right now. But as you get, we do the work, we get a little closer. It's like that visibility starts to come in, right? And you get closer and closer. And then eventually you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. You can see exactly what it is. It's a building, and there's, this on it and that on it and all these things. That's what our math plan starts to become. It gets clearer and clearer as we engage in that work. So I would say your objectives, the reason we suggest 3 is really, humans love 3s, right? First of all, but also because if we pick too many things, right, then we're actually, we're prioritizing nothing, right? And this is something that we in education get stuck doing all the time. And the reason why we do it is because we want to help kids as best we can, right? So why do we, so we're like, well, there's these 40 things we need to change, right, in order to make sure that students get what they need, and they should all do those things. So, we put all these ideas out there, but the problem is that we have no chance to actually focus on any of them. And then we often don't accomplish much, to really, or anything measurable, we'll say, for those big goals. So really aiming for 3 allows you to kind of focus. It also allows the entire group to sort of be able to like name them, right? Like you want to be able to name them. If you have a priority list and you have to pull out a piece of paper to like tell someone what the priorities are, that's not a priority, right? That's like, these are great ideas. So, you wouldn't necessarily have all of those wish list items. We can hold on to them, and you want to keep those. But over time, like what we're trying to do is we want to hack away at the objectives that matter most to the group. Because remembering that if it's, just my idea, like some districts will come in, they'll say, well, tell us what you think our goals should be in our first meeting. And we're like, we could tell you what, what we and what research would say is going to help you. But the problem is that if you don't see it, then you're not going to be able to focus on it, right? Like, so we need to develop this as a team, and this is going to organically grow. And I would argue for you, Shawn, if you're leading this work or helping to lead this work, you can let the group know and say, like, listen, we're trying to gain clarity together, right? Like it's almost better in that way, where you're saying it's like, this isn't me who has the perfect clear vision. And I think this is what really holds a lot of districts back and leaders in districts. When I began my role as a district leader, I kind of came in and I had a vision for myself of what I wanted to see in a district. And I went out there assuming that like everyone would just line up and, and follow me down. But the reality is how I missed the boat there was I didn't bring them into that process, and I didn't allow them to engage in the same work and the realization, the epiphanies that I had already. So that's what makes a great math organizer, or a great math leader, a great math facilitator, is by, having some of these epiphanies in your mind of like, hey, I envision my district, and this, our district would be so much better if we did this, 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 and this. But it's, how do I bring that out of the group? How do I help the group to recognize that, to mentor them to see that? Because the reality is that if I can see it, but they don't, now I'm just telling them. Right. And now we're back to doing what we did with kids in math class. We're like, hey, this is Pythagorean theorem, and, here's how you do it. It's like, no, we need them to like come on that journey to recognize like, oh, there's like a pattern here that, if we did this, this, and this, then things would get better. And the same is true here in our district planning activities that we engage in with our leaders.
Yeah. Oh, I think I get it now. And I actually am really excited about it now. I was always wondering like how that happens. I will say like our administration is fantastic from top down. I mean, they really will support this. I went to the assistant to the super, and she's like, absolutely. We'll get him. So I'm like, whoa, that was great. So
that is fantastic.
There's pushback. So I feel like I have, when we meet the first time, I feel now like, okay, I got it. I'm going to bring sticky notes, and we're just going to go to town. Then we're going to sit there and just have this nice discussion about it. Because like you said, it's not, I don't ever want it to be my plan. It's Cacao.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the district, not about any of us. And that's the one thing I think is neat about the teachers. I really do think we believe that it's about what's best for Calico and those kids, not what's best for me or whatever. We're not.
Of course.
Well, I definitely get
yeah.
the sense that you are, and I had mentioned, like, I really get this sense, like, we've only had the opportunity to chat a few times, right? And based on everything I hear from you, you are in a position, just your demeanor, the way you approach things, you're very non-threatening, right? And I know, like, some people are like, what? Like, there's people out there that are threatening, and it's like, no, they just come off as maybe a little bit too aggressive in terms of their beliefs and what they want. Sometimes passion does that to people, right? Like, you can come in and you might have a math leader who's in there and they're like, listen, we need better for our kids. And because of that, I'm going to make sure that we don't stop at anything until we get there, which is great that we're passionate like that. And we know that that work is so important. But the problem is getting that team to, like, trust that, they're going to be a part of the process. And that's what I hear from you. Like, I hear this idea that, like, you are truly here trying to do better, but you're not coming in saying, like, I have all the answers, right? And I think when we approach it in that way, you build a great team, and the team just wants to follow, even though you're not trying to lead, quote unquote, but you are leading, right? You're doing it in such a way that it's just, I guess, so.
But I never view it that way. But you guys have so much information and there's so much research and power. Plus, on top of that, I think what you guys don't give yourself enough credit, but, like, after 2018, I'm going in there and actually trying to implement first. Does this really work? What does this look like? And then once you do that, then the other, like, I just was very blessed to have another teacher that was, like, looking at it. He was brand new and he was having trouble with his classroom behavior. And you guys were like, well, let's put the problem first, because let's lower the bar, or math, or as Dan Meyer would say, turn down the math dial. But, like, you go in there and you're actually trying it. So it's not like I'm going in there saying, oh, here's what research says. It's like, okay, here's what we've done. We tried this, it's been successful here. Can we try a little bit more? And our teachers just all work together. And they're okay if I walk into the room like, listen, last night I was trying this and I didn't get it. Can someone help me understand this? I'm okay with that. I guess, but like you said, there's so much that you guys have put out that I think are in place. But there's a lot of, we going into what, 5 years now? 5 years now.
Oh, yeah.
You got some, we were able to put some of it into practice, and I think that helped. I think that helped.
That's amazing to hear. And Shawn, if you're going to kind of go down this path with the Magic Wand wish list and thinking about aligning, K-12, if you're going to kind of follow that plan that we follow with our district partners, what do you think is going to be a barrier to, say, achieving the results you want to see?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I don't know why, because this has been a barrier of mine. I actually went to it. Would be the professional development side.
Now, tell us more about.
I was going to say,
structurally, logistically,
So there's two things. For me, is I went to the superintendent and I asked, like, are we going to have any in-service time this year? And due to restraints, we don't have any, and that's okay. There's no time we get together as a department. You would like to have department meetings in the morning, but hey, I have teachers who 4 of them are coaches. So guess what? That's not going to work before. And that's okay. That's because I know we're not trying to climb the mountain in 1 year. And like I said, that's where I think those, like, a lot of times we'll meet in the morning, but our grade levels have meetings too. For me, that would be the barrier, that once we choose our objectives, I see that as we're working through. But I'm kind of like one of those, like, dude, we have 5 years. Okay, so if that's a barrier, how do we get around that barrier? And hopefully when the 3 of us meet, we can come up with a solution. And then I know our superintendent, our assistant superintendents will come in and work with us on that. Like, I don't know how that looks like, but I would say right now that would probably be what I would say would be the biggest barrier to working with that. But I also like the way we're doing PD now after following you guys is our next one is, instead of, because I did a one-off with the keynotes, but we actually worked with the guy who's going to be taking over for me, but I was talking to my department about it. I said, I want to solve problems together. And I want to put 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade together. And here's this one problem I have, which is which one doesn't belong. And I want to see how each of them solves it. Because I think, again, in my mind, I think 6th grade is going to solve it one way, 7th grade another way, 8th grade another way, based on the question I have. And then we're going to look at what the curriculum looks like going across.
Love it.
And because, like you said, they're going to experience it, but then they're going to see it. And I never thought of it that way. Yes, because as we're teaching, this is where the kids are going. Does that make sense? So I think
for sure.
I want to get that in place, but I'm probably going to need an hour and a half for that. And I just don't see that time with my department at this. Because even if I bring them in the morning, it's only for 20, 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's also challenging with these people that have young kids that are now coaching and that's okay. Because that's what these are people. And I really admire these people that I work with, because they are really something.
Well, it sounds like your team is awesome. It sounds like there's a great synergy there across the team, which is awesome. And I just want to name that there are one thing that we're seeing we work with a handful of districts every year through our district improvement program, but we also have done we'll do like an initial coaching call with whatever district reaches out. We'll hop on a call and kind of like this it doesn't always come on the podcast like a mentoring moment call, but we do it with district leaders to try to help them get started on their journey. And something that we're hearing is that we're not getting enough math on the table when we do our professional development. So those limbs of the tree, in order to strengthen those, we're constantly talking about how there has to be math on the table. And, you just highlighted this idea of getting them to do the math. And if we can do that in every opportunity we possibly can. Now, maybe not with this wish list activity. This might be, the one exception that I would argue that maybe there isn't math on the table for that. But as you work through, always having math there is so key, because that's how we're going to get to the roots of the tree ultimately at the end. And what we're finding is that we can try any pedagogical practice. We can go and, we can pull out, vertical non-permanent surfaces with Peter Lildahl's work. We can, go to, Van de Waal's work and do a 3-part math lesson, or we could do the 5 practice. We could do all these things. But if we don't have strong enough roots of our tree, if we don't have that content knowledge, and we're not talking about, are you comfortable with doing a procedure like I did when I was in school? We're talking about actually understanding how the math develops. We're really not going to make much gains, if any gains, over the long term. So keep that math on the table. That's huge. And then structurally for your limbs, you're talking about, the challenge of maybe not having as much in-service time. There are creative ways, as you mentioned, in order to get together. And sometimes, even if it's small little chunks, and sometimes it can even be in small groups too, to craft ways that this can happen. And you'll never know. Like some of the districts we worked with in the past, sometimes the administrators step up to the plate and say, hey, listen, if 2 people want to get released, it's like, the administrators, like, I will jump in for, a 40-minute block to cover one. And then we have maybe another person on staff who, is open and they're able to jump in. Maybe it's the coach, like a coach hops in, and then that way those educators can get together. So there are creative ways. I love how you're staying positive about it too, which is really key. And you're not letting that sort of hinder, crafting those objectives. Even if there was 0 PD time, having the alignment where everyone is working towards the same objectives, even if it is in more isolation than maybe we would like, you're going to see much bigger gains over the long term than you would if we're all just kind of randomly, trying this or trying that. Oh, Shawn, I tried that idea 2 years ago, and this person's like, oh, I'm going to try that idea next. And we're kind of all over the map. If we have that vision, that's going to allow us to continue working towards the same goals. And then some of that conversation comes out at the photocopier, right? Or in the staff room over the lunch table, right? Instead of the lunch table being about, talking about all the things that went wrong today, we can maybe start talking about, some of the things like where we are with our objectives, having those objectives like printed and laminated and put on the table so that all the teachers, when they come in, they see it when they're there, whether they talk about it or not, right? So there's all these, ideas that we can try to build and put into practice. But before we ask you for maybe a big takeaway here and let you get on with a super busy Tuesday, I want to also offer to you, and more so to say your superintendent, if your team is interested in hopping on a call with us, to chat a little bit more about the district improvement program. Some districts and most of our district partners actually bring us in simply to have an outside voice and to help be the accountability partners to try to help with some of the decision making that happens. It can be difficult sometimes for educators to advocate for an idea to, say, a superintendent or to a supervisor, because there is a hierarchy there, and sometimes it's good to have a team come together and really talk it through. And oftentimes what we've found is that our district partners, often when there's a challenge, like, say, no in-service, or when there's no funding for maybe something specific, what we will do with those teams, usually it's a superintendent team, is we'll actually engage in a little bit of prioritizing and help them with their budget. Because oftentimes we look at the budget and most of it stays the same from year to year. And unless there's a new bucket of money that shows up, it's like we don't add anything new. But we haven't actually reviewed where that money is going, and is it actually having the same impact, or the impact we're hoping to have? Is there a way we can restructure this in a way that might be able to open up a PLC time, or to have X number of supply teachers or substitute teachers available throughout the year for some of this PD? So we really do try to help get creative when there is a true challenge when it comes to in-service. And oftentimes we can find some solutions. So that's an offer. I know we only have, John, I think about one spot left for this next year for our district improvement program.
I think we got two. Yeah, I think we got two.
Two? Okay, awesome. So, but however, for your district, whether there's a spot or not, I would, if your team wants to hop on a call, even just to have that chat and kind of get your team kind of in the same place so that you can engage in that work, we'd be more than happy to. So just an offer to you there. And of course, anyone listening to the podcast, of course, reach out to us. Whether we have our spots full or not, we will always take on a district call so that we can at least help the district team sort of get framed up, ready to go, and with some next actionable steps to help them get, down that path so they can see those key results starting to shift over time.
Yeah. The only thing I would add about PD is, as a superintendent, I would be this way or just any leader, even a principal. If I just go and say, hey, listen, I need PD time, I'm going to look at you and say no. But I think if we do this work, and you always have to plan. Like, if I want PD time, we're going to make this math vision. I'm thinking PD wouldn't happen till next year, because they need to plan for next year now and plan that in. But we also need a reason. What are you going to do with that time? So I got to I feel like if we get that small group, like you guys said, let's get the vision. Let's look at and what will we need. Then I think that's a whole different conversation with your leaders.
You're 100% correct.
I need this. I'm not quite sure I need it for. Like, that's a whole. I don't know. I just want to put that out there. That sometimes we think we're just going to go over and forget it. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, like I think the most successful districts we work with are the ones that are they realize like you realize there are constraints, and we have to, or the most successful are the ones that are in those curriculum consultant or math curriculum director roles, who we're thinking about making sure that the folks above us know what we need and what's available and what we can do. But the most successful ones are the ones being flexible in those constraints. It's like, what creative ways can I provide to these people up here, because they're really busy, so that it's a no-brainer for them to go yes. Right? Like, that's an easy one because you figured out all the little things along the way that I don't have to think about. So our most successful ones are and that's why Kyle brought up the issue of working with districts, is because we help them do that as well. It's like, what creative ways can we figure out here to structure the limbs of our tree, which are those professional development models, and what do we have to work with?
Well, and Shawn, you the part that really resonated that you said was this idea is like, once they see the work and how important the work is, priorities shift, right? Whereas, like you said, if you just go up, and this happens sometimes, we'll meet with a district leader on a call, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'd love to be, and have this program and have this support so that we can do this work in our district. And it's like, sometimes they'll just go and individually walk up to, say, their supervisor and say, hey, we would love to do this thing called the district improvement program. And the supervisor's like, how much does it cost? Like, that would be the first, thought that goes through someone's mind. And they're like, oh, we don't have any budget. But when people actually are brought to the table, they have the conversation and they start to envision like what that would look like. if we were doing this work, and that if we had the support as well, where there's an accountability partner to help move that along, that is where you start to see them go, you know what? This sounds a whole lot more important than this other thing that we had in our budget, that has been in our budget for the past 5 years, because it's always been in our budget and we've just always done it and we've never thought to change it. And now they go, you know what? I think we have something here that actually might be more important. And therefore now the priority shifts. So keep that in mind as you do this work with your team, is like, you see the value here. The hardest part for you is to be like, how do you do it in a way, like if, let's say it's for PD time, when you go, it's like you have to build that case over time. But we as humans, we would much rather have an answer right now, right? Like, so you just kind of want, like, can I have PD time? And they're like, no. But if that work and you're building that up, that answer can shift in time, where they go, holy smokes, like, look at the work that this team is doing. It's like, we're committing our budget over here to this other thing over here, which doesn't seem to be really having the same impact or influence. There can be some shifts that take place. So might take you a little bit of time, but staying positive as you are and working within those constraints for the short term will lead to better long-term results when it comes to, say, even just structurally, the budget and all of those things. So I think you're nailing it there. So we've chatted about so many things here, Shawn, and it is early in the morning. So I'm super energetic. You've got me started on the right foot here today with this conversation. Tell us, is what's your big takeaway, and what is, I guess, your next step? Like, what are you hoping to do next year after we hang up on this call?
Next year? I don't know about next year yet, but
sorry. Next step, not next year. Sorry, I might have.
Okay. My next step right now. Yeah. So I have a meeting next week, and I've already talked to one, but I want to make sure I talk to a high school math teacher and just talk to them and say, can we get together for a day and let's do this activity? Now, I guess, can I ask you a quick question? You said you would hop on a call with us. So you said it has to be regular meetings. How many meetings do you think it would take? How many meetings in your experience does it take for you guys to kind of hash out visions and that kind of stuff? Because I don't see it being one. So
it's not one.
What would I be asking for? Like,
usually at the beginning of a call, people think it'll be one, but then they have a call like we just had here where we're chatting, and then you go, wait a second, this isn't going to be a one call thing. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Okay. Yeah. So how many meetings does it normally take for you when you guys meet with teachers to craft that vision? So we do our wish list, we get our 3 objectives. I think that's doable in a day. Yes.
So if you're going to engage in an activity with your team, you can definitely get the wish list done and start to craft your objectives. If you're spending a day, for sure, in that small team, definitely you could achieve that in a day, and that's going to set the work that you do. And the other thing I don't think we said here is that once you have those objectives, right? Like once you craft that, then everything you do for the year should always, refer back to those objectives as the filter. It's like, does that thing help this? Does that thing help this? Like everything should go through that filter. And so that work is always ongoing, and it's always kind of in flux as well. So it's like, hey, just because we set 3 objectives right now doesn't mean like we could start to pivot or change these things as we go. But when we hop on a call, we talk about what those big wish list items are. But we always like to say we move as fast as the district wants to, or the curriculum leader or the person in your role wants to. So that's kind of a time frame. It depends on the district and what their priorities are, and where or how we can help those shape those priorities. So there's not a hard and fast rule of exactly how many, but you can get this done in a day.
Okay. And then if it is multiple calls and you would be willing to hop on one, or I pay you to hop on one, whatever, would it be the first one, or do you guys find that you're more valuable? Like if we have our objectives, that you meet with us the next time? I'm just curious. Like,
I would say that it's a great question. I would say that typically when we do hop on, like we'll hop on with a district, usually to engage kind of like in this conversation that we've had here with you, and we try to help get them going and those sorts of things with you, because we've done this first call. probably the logical piece would be to be a part of, say, one of the, we'll call it closer to now calls, if that makes sense. Only because if we were brought back in, say 4 months from now, and you're going, hey, we did a little bit, like by the time we get caught up in terms of the work that's been done, we're still trying to figure out, hey, like, where are your heads at? Where, how were these objectives? How did you come up with the objectives? Do we fully understand what that means? Because when everyone, and this is another key piece that I think is worth noting, it's a nuance, but I don't think district partners often see it until later, is like, if the whole team is not a part of the process to develop the objectives, the interpretation of someone new coming in, it will take them time to actually get a clear vision of what that actually means to the group. Does that make sense? Because it's been developed together. It's been co-constructed. It started from like this massive list, this massive wish list. And then it's been, kind of refined. It's been filtered down into something smaller. So it's almost like a definition, right? Your definition of mathematics might be different than my definition of mathematics. It's like, what does it mean to you? These objectives are big enough that, just reading them might not give you the full context. But when someone does come into the district, because we have these objectives, we can bring them into the fold much more quickly than someone who's just a new teacher kind of flopping around for 5 years, trying to figure out, like, what matters here? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? It really does help bring them on board. So to your point about, when it might make sense, I would say if say you have a district leader on the call, like your superintendent or someone like that, I would say doing some of that work at the beginning to help them. I think what we could probably assist you and your team with the most, especially if, let's say, it's not, you're not looking to become a district partner over, the next 1 to 3 years, I would say, is to get them on board so that they get clear about this process and this work, right? Versus us coming in, 3 months down the road and kind of checking in to see where you're at. I would say the beginning of the work to help them to see and prioritize that, hey, it's not just Shawn that sees this as important. You want them to see it as important as well, right?
Well, and they could also change my mind based on what they know. You know what I mean? Like, you have to go into an open mind. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't, like I said, I don't ever want to pretend like I have all the answers, but I do know, following you guys, I have a lot more knowledge now about how math works, if that makes, like, in pedagogy.
For sure.
Definitely. So, Shawn, we want to thank you for joining us here. And
thank you. Sorry I took so much time.
No, not at all. This has been
great. We're here for you.
We've been rambling on, Shawn. We should be apologizing to you. We get really passionate about this work. So thanks for bringing it up.
Too, now, like, I feel like, oh man, I got to go see him now and ask him. But yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. This is so cool.
Awesome stuff.
I really appreciate what you guys have done. I'm very glad I got to be with you guys from the beginning and see you release everything over time, because I'm like, whoa, I've spent a lot of time in here. Just luckily it got spread out because I was with you guys from the start. So it's fun.
I love it.
Right.
Thank you guys very much.
Right.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you, Shawn. We'll be sure to definitely check in with you next year. But we look forward to actually hearing from you. Reach out to us if you want to take that next step. Send us an email and we can set something up.
I'm going to send you, as we get going here, I just don't mind. I don't have to be on the show. I was just like, let you know, like, hey, this is cool. This is where you guys.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Would love to hear it.
I know, like, you're really helping us. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, listen, Shawn, for you, we will send you a link as well. If you and your superintendent or anyone from the district is interested in, hopping on and learning a little bit more about this process. For you, some of it will be kind of on, repeat, right? Understanding this process, helping to bring them up to speed, allowing them to ask some questions too, because sometimes it's not as clear. You've been with us since the beginning, so that, this probably feels a whole lot, clearer to you than it might to someone who's coming in and doesn't sort of understand the tree and some of that work. Anyone, including yourself, can head to makemathmoments.com/district. And that will there'll be like a button there to book a call. So feel free, you and your team can do the same. And we'll throw it out there to every other math moment maker out there who's listening. If they want to get on a call and chat a little bit more about where your, district or school is in their planning journey in terms of building that alignment and building that vision, that clear, concise vision for mathematics, head to that makemathmoments.com/district link. And you can grab a spot, and we're looking forward to chatting with some more districts soon.
Awesome. You guys rock.
Thanks, Shawn.
Awesome Tuesday. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a great day, my friend. Good luck.
See ya.
Well, as always, Math Moment Makers, we love bringing on our Math Moment Maker community to check in. And it was great to reconnect with Shawn. He was on way back in episode, I think it was 223. And we got to know him through the academy over the years. And it's so great to see his growth, his own mathematics growth, but also that leadership growth. And, he talked specifically about the trunk of the tree, and he wants to focus his team on that alignment from K through 12. And you know what, though? One thing we didn't talk about, but really came out to me, was that his own trunk, the trunk of his own math tree, has been growing. That leadership piece, those pillars, the piece that's really strengthening that alignment, becoming clear and concise on what he wants for mathematics programming. And now he's stretching it across K through 12 and trying to bring more of his educators and colleagues to the table.
Yeah. And in this episode, you heard us talk all parts of this, of the math, the math program tree. Specifically, we dove into the limbs of the tree and thinking about how to structure his professional development plan. We talked about pedagogical moves briefly. We talked about some resources his teachers are using also. So, we even dove into the mindset and thinking about that piece. We hit all aspects of the tree, and it is great to see Shawn's, like you said, Kyle, Shawn's growth. And we look forward to kind of keep strengthening that tree in helping and supporting the alignment that his district's going to make in achieving their objectives and then setting some key results. So we look forward to kind of continuing that discussion with Shawn.
I love it. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're thinking about, hey, I want more alignment across my entire school, more specifically across your district or organization, you can head on over to makemathmoments.com/district. And on that page, you can learn a little bit more about the district improvement program, an overview of the 6 parts of your math program tree, as well as an opportunity to book a call, hop on with your team so that John and I can do some learning alongside you and help you with your next steps. If you specifically want that magic wand wish list activity and you want the workbook that goes along with it, you can head to makemathmoments.com/what matters. Again, that's makemathmoments.com/what matters. And of course, as always, we have all of our links from each episode on our show notes page. Today's show notes are on episode 252. That is makemathmoments.com/episode 252. So those links will be on that page as well. Well, until next time, Math Moment Maker friends, I'm Kyle Pierce.
And I'm John Orr.
High fives for us.
And a high five for you.